The rise of another war caused more unrest amongst the Jedi, and with Jedi temples being constructed on worlds such as Coruscant and Ilum, the Jedi were once more being split into various factions. The Jedi had different ideas on how to tackle the war, and they were divided between serving the Republic on the battlefield and protecting their families. Like the war over Ossus, the Emperor, even in his relative solitude on Dromund Kaas, was still influencing much of the galaxy's events as he healed in his stasis. The Sith had been deceived by Darth Nihilus and Lord Scourge, and whilst he wanted them terminated for their betrayal, his priorities were on a much grander scale. The loss of the Starforge and losses in the Eternal Fleet were unfortunate, as he had planned for a swift annihilation of the galaxy, but the Sith could wait. In his absence, the Dark Council had become fractured, and Sith started to separate and look to be the one to usurp the Emperor. As Jedi and Sith destroyed each other in isolated battles, there were two Sith who stood out through the fog of chaos, and these were Darth Vindican and his apprentice Veridon, now known as Malgus. The two Sith took advantage of the widespread discontent created by war, and instead of annihilating worlds like Vitiate, they started to convert alien species into warriors of the Sith, using the multilingual Malgus. The Emperor could sense the power and efficiency of Malgus, and thought the Sith could make for a useful tool, and with his recovering powers, he guided them to a number of superweapons, which his scientists had been crafting in secrecy. The first of these destructive devices was the Sunraiser designed by Darth Mekis, which, like the Starforge, had the capability to produce a variety of ships. Vindican and Malgus decided to eliminate some of their Sith competition, such as Darth Angral and Darth Venimal, who they believed were threats, and could compromise the Sith's domination. As the two Siths started to assert some of their dominance over the other candidates to the throne, their next task was to destroy the Republic and the scattered Jedi. With the effectiveness of the superweapon project, the two Sith decided to infiltrate the Republic's own version, and capture the renowned scientist Nassan Godera, who had been on the radar of Darth Angral. The acquisition of their most esteemed scientist caused great concern amongst the Republic, and whilst the Jedi had been divided, the situation forced them to work together again. Led by the more combat-orientated Venzalo, the Jedi discovered on the temple on Coruscant that the exiled Revan had created a holocron with knowledge of a counter to the Sith's armory. The former Jedi Master discovered a Rakatan facility similar to the Starforge called the Foundry, and away from the Emperor, the Jedi of the present were able to mine ores and resources and close the deficit to the Empire's vast fleet. Whilst they built their fleet, Jedi Master Zim led a separate division of Jedi to find weaknesses in the Sith, and they found Malgus had an attachment to the Twi'lek Alina Daru. With the Force techniques taught under Mitra Surik's code, the Jedi connect with Daru and discover a belief that Malgus could be converted to the light. Having examined some of the Sith Empire's files on Malgus, the Jedi had seen that the Sith had been exposed to the dark side since his childhood at the Dromund Kaas Sith Academy. Combined with the influence of the determined Darth Vindican, it seemed that the only indication of a redemption was his defiance of the Empire's anti-alien policy. The Jedi Masters were now playing a dangerous waiting game with the Sith. After a period of inactivity from the Sith, it was Fleet Admiral Oteg who first made contact with the Sith, but it was not the Sith they were expecting. Amidst the chaos amongst the Dark Council, Darth Varaun had emerged with his own plan, gathering a group of soldiers known as the Armageddon Battalion. Having used the Discord to defeat Darth Barriss, Varaun realised his age restricted him from defeating the Emperor and his subordinates in combat, so he decided to search for Jedi help. When Oteg relayed Varaun's offer to the other Jedi, they were unsurprisingly suspicious, but they knew that Varaun would lead them to Vindican and Malgus. The Jedi choose to accept a tenuous alliance, and as they had expected, he asks the Jedi for some of their resources. With the Jedi controlling the Foundry, they donate some of their older Republic ships to help Varaun, and in exchange, he guided them through the Stygian Caldera, which was a notorious nebula controlled by the Sith Empire. When the Jedi entered the airspace above Dromund Kaas, Varaun diverted his fleet to one of the moons of Dromund Kaas, as the Jedi were met by the full might of Vindican and Malgus' fleet. Before some of the Sith's superweapons could charge up, the Jedi sprung into action, using their small and agile starfighters to weave through the turret fire of the capital ship and fired their own shot at the Desolator. Combining the planet prison, Deathmark laser and shock drum, Vindican had taken control of a dreadnought housed a superweapon, and initiating phase 1 of his attack, he trapped the first wave of Jedi starfighters in an ionic atmospheric bubble. Admiral Otek stared in horror as the corpses of Jedi pilots hovered in the air, but it was too late for a retreat. The Jedi were now trapped by the incoming Eternal Fleet of Darth Malgus, so Otek decided the Jedi had to attack the flagship of Vindican. The Jedi positioned their Hammerhead-class cruisers perpendicular to the flagship and fired into the side of the ship. This forced Vindican to divert energy away from the Desolator, and as Jedi reinforcements finally arrived, Otek's aggression provided an escape through to Dromund Kaas. Many pilots were sacrificed to create a path for the other Jedi, and led by Zalo and Zim, the surviving Jedi feel the tendrils of darkness through their spines as they descended through to the surface. The anti-aircraft missiles in the jungle terrain made landings difficult, and the Jedi ultimately crashed in the swamps. As the searchlight of the Sith ground forces drew closer, the Jedi saw a Fury-class Imperial intercept of the Sith fly over their heads, and the Jedi followed them to Kaas City. When they reached the shadow of the Imperial Citadel, the Jedi were blown away by a sudden storm as the ghost of Sith Lord Kalik had awoken. The former enemy of Tulak Horde blocked the trespassers from the temple, and as he began to summon other spirits, Zalo ordered for a retreat. Instead of approaching the temple from the base of the valley, the Jedi leapt onto the incoming Jedi starfighters, and once above the temple's perimeter, they jumped to fight the guards and the dark side warriors. The sheer number of Jedi were able to overwhelm the trained Sith, but as they walked through the scary statues and towering pillars, they stopped in their tracks. The awoken Darth Vishya was teamed with a squad of Imperial guards, and without any emotion, he blasted Zalo and any other Jedi in the vicinity. As the surviving Jedi staggered back to the entrance, Vishya followed them outside and called upon the skies to summon a swirling storm, burying the Jedi several feet below ground. Vindican and Malgus soon arrived from their fleet and bowed to the Emperor, who ordered them to destroy the survivors. Igniting their weapons, the two Sith cut through the helpless Jedi when they looked to see a blinding light from above. In the space over Dromund Kaas, Darth Varon had repaired the damaged Desolator, and after ionizing the atmosphere, the Sith used the shock drum, and the planet started to split into pieces. As Varon watched the downfall of his rival Jedi and Sith, he was impaled by a blue lightsaber. The Sith's body dropped to the floor, and behind him stood Satele Shan, born from the code of her ancestors, and perhaps the final hope. That is it for part 3 of What If the Jedi Allowed Attachments. If you'd like to see another part or any other what ifs, feel free to leave your comments below. Thank you for watching and see you next time.